Danny Carter had been working on Galactic Trade Station Omega-7 for 3 months. He was a maintenance worker. His job was to fix broken pipes, repair electrical systems, and keep the lower decks running smoothly. It was not a fancy job, but Danny did not mind. He liked working with his hands. He liked being useful. The station was massive. It floated in deep space, far from any planet. Thousands of aliens lived and worked there. They came from dozens of different worlds. Some were tall, some were short, some had scales, some had fur, some had no hair at all. Danny was one of only 30 humans on the entire station. Humans were still new to galactic society. Most aliens did not know what to think of them. Danny kept to himself most of the time. He woke up early every morning. He ate breakfast alone in his small room. Then he walked to the lower decks to start his shift. The lower decks were dark and quiet. Most aliens did not like to go there. That suited Danny just fine. One morning, everything changed. Danny was walking through a narrow hallway near Cargo Bay 12. He was thinking about the broken cooling unit he needed to fix. Then he heard a sound. It was soft at first. He almost missed it. But then he heard it again. It sounded like crying. No, not crying exactly. It was more like whimpering, like a small animal that was hurt and trying to stay quiet. Danny stopped walking. He listened carefully. The sound was coming from inside the cargo bay. He walked to the door and pushed it open slowly. The cargo bay was full of metal crates stacked in tall rows. The lights were dim. Danny looked around but did not see anyone at first. Then he heard the sound again. It came from the far corner of the room. Danny walked between the rows of crates. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. When he reached the corner, he found something that made his heart sink. A small alien was curled up against a stack of crates. The creature was tiny. It stood no more than 4 feet tall. Its skin was pale and almost see-through. Danny could see faint blue lines under the skin where the blood flowed. The alien had large, dark eyes that took up most of its face. Its arms and legs were thin like sticks. It looked fragile. It looked like it could break if you touched it too hard. The alien was a Velni. Danny had read about them in the station database. The Velni were known throughout the galaxy as the weakest species. They had no claws. They had no fangs. They had no strength. They could not fight. They could not run fast. They had no way to protect themselves from anything. When the Velni saw Danny, it made a scared sound and raised its thin arms to cover its face. The creature was shaking. That was when Danny noticed the bruises. Dark purple marks covered the alien's arms. More bruises were visible on its chest and stomach. Some of the marks looked old. Some of them looked fresh. Someone had been hurting this creature. Someone had been hurting it badly and often. Danny felt something cold grow in his chest. It was anger, but it was also something else. It was the same feeling he got when he saw a dog being kicked or a child being bullied. It was the feeling that something was very wrong and someone needed to make it right. Danny crouched down slowly. He made himself as small as he could. He did not want to scare the alien more than it already was. "Hey there," Danny said softly. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt you. I promise." The Velni lowered its arms a little bit. Its big dark eyes stared at Danny with fear and confusion. It was clear that the creature did not expect kindness. "My name is Danny," he said. "What is your name?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then it spoke in a small voice. "Kip. My name is Kip." "Hi, Kip. Can you tell me what happened? Who did this to you?" Kip looked down at the floor. Its thin body shook. "The Drokins. They come every morning, before my shift. They find me and they hurt me. They say it is fun. They say it helps them wake up." Danny felt the cold anger in his chest grow stronger. "How long has this been happening?" "Many months. Since I came to this station." "Did you tell anyone? Did you report it to security?" Kip made a sound that might have been a sad laugh. "I told them. They did not care. The security chief said I should stay out of the way. He said if I did not want to be hurt, I should not be seen. Danny's hands curled into fists. That is not right. That is not right at all. Kip looked up at him with those big, dark eyes. There was no hope in them. There was only acceptance. The acceptance of a creature that had learned its place in the universe. Why would anyone help? Kip asked. We are Velni. We are nothing. We are the weakest. The galaxy has no place for the weak. Everyone knows this. Those words hit Danny harder than any punch. We are nothing. He had heard words like that before. On Earth. In history books. From people who had been told their whole lives that they did not matter. That they were less than others. That their pain did not count. Danny stood up. He held out his hand to Kip. Come on. I am taking you to the medical bay. Kip stared at his hand like it was a strange alien object. Why? Why would you do this? Because someone should. Because no one else is doing it. Because where I come from, we do not let people suffer alone if we can help it. Kip hesitated for a long time. Then slowly, the little Velni reached out and took Danny's hand. Its fingers were cold and thin. Danny helped Kip stand up. The alien was so light, it was like lifting a child. They walked out of the cargo bay together. Danny walked slowly so Kip could keep up. Other aliens passed them in the hallways. Some of them stared. A human walking with a Velni was not a common sight. Danny ignored all of them. At the medical bay, the doctor was a four-armed alien called a Kreth. The doctor looked at Kip with bored eyes. It was clear he had seen Velni injuries before. It was clear he did not think they mattered much. Treat him well, Danny said. I will be back to check on him. The doctor looked surprised, but he nodded and led Kip to a bed. Danny went to work after that. He fixed the cooling unit. He repaired 2 broken light panels. He did all the things he was supposed to do, but his mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about Kip. He kept thinking about those bruises. He kept thinking about the words that would not leave his head. We are nothing. That night, Danny could not sleep. He lay in his Danny woke up 2 hours before his normal time. The station was quiet. Most workers were still asleep in their rooms. The hallways were empty and dim. Only the emergency lights were on. Danny got dressed quickly. He did not eat breakfast. He was not hungry. His stomach was tight with something that felt like anger mixed with purpose. He had spent half the night thinking about what he was going to do. He still did not have a real plan. But he knew where he needed to be. He had asked around quietly the day before. He talked to a cleaning robot that worked the night shift. The robot did not care about station politics. It just answered questions. Danny learned that the beatings usually happened in a corridor near the sanitation wing. It was a dead-end hallway with no cameras. Someone had broken them months ago. No one had fixed them. No one cared enough to fix them. Danny walked through the quiet station. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. He passed sleeping quarters and closed shops. He passed cargo bays and storage rooms. Finally, he reached the sanitation wing. The corridor was just as the robot described. It was narrow and dark. There were pipes running along the ceiling. The walls were stained with old dirt. A broken camera hung from a bracket near the corner. This was where they did it. This was where they hurt Kip every morning while no one watched. Danny found a dark spot behind a large pipe junction. He pressed himself against the wall and waited. His heart was beating steady and strong. He was not scared. He had been in fights before, back on Earth, back in Montana where he grew up. He knew what it felt like to hit someone and to get hit back. He waited for almost an hour. Then he heard voices. 3 aliens walked into the corridor. They were Drokans. Danny had seen their kind around the station before. They were big reptiles with thick green scales and yellow eyes. They had wide shoulders and strong arms. Their hands had short claws. They walked with the confidence of creatures that knew they were strong. They walked like they owned everything around them. The biggest one was in front. He was almost 7 feet tall. His scales were darker than the others. He had a scar across his snout that made him look mean. The other two followed behind him like loyal dogs. They were laughing about something. Their voices were rough and loud. Danny stayed hidden. He watched and waited. A few minutes later, Kip appeared at the other end of the corridor. The little Velny was walking with his head down. His thin shoulders were hunched. He moved like someone who expected pain. He moved like someone who had given up hope. The big Drokan saw Kip and smiled. His teeth were sharp and yellow. "There you are, little waste-eater. We were starting to think you ran away." Kip stopped walking. His body started to shake. "Please, not today. I am still hurt from yesterday." The Drokans laughed. The big one stepped forward and grabbed Kip by the throat. He lifted the tiny Velny off the floor like he weighed nothing. Kip made a choking sound. His thin legs kicked in the air. "That is what makes it fun," the big Drokan said. His name was Gorath. Danny had learned that name, too. Breaking something that is already broken. The other two Drokans laughed harder. Danny stepped out of the shadows. "Let him go." All 3 Drokans turned to look at him. Gorath kept his grip on Kip's throat. His yellow eyes studied Danny with amusement. "What is this?" Gorath asked. "A human? What do you want, soft skin?" "I said let him go." Gorath snorted. Steam came out of his nostrils. "Walk away, human. This is not your business. Go back to fixing toilets or whatever it is you do." Danny did not move. He kept his eyes locked on Gorath. "I am making it my business. Put the Velny down. Now!" The other 2 Drokans looked at each other. They seemed confused. They were not used to anyone challenging them, especially not a human. Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to be scared of everything. Gorath dropped Kip to the floor. The little Velny fell in a heap, gasping for air. Gorath stepped over him and walked toward Danny. He was nearly a foot taller than the human. He looked down at Danny with a grin full of sharp teeth. "You want to take his place? Fine. We do not care who we hurt. Drokan claws cut all flesh the same." "I am only going to ask one more time," Danny said. His voice was calm. "Leave him alone. Walk away. Do not come back." Gorath laughed. Then he swung his fist at Danny's face. He missed. Danny moved faster than Gorath expected. The human ducked under the punch and stepped to the side. Then Danny grabbed Gorath's arm and twisted it hard. There was a loud cracking sound. Gorath screamed. His arm bent in a direction it was not supposed to bend. The other 2 Drokans stood frozen for a moment. They could not believe what they had just seen. Then the second one charged at Danny with his claws out. Danny let go of Gorath and moved toward the attacker. He did not try to block the claws. Instead, he stepped inside the Drokan's reach and drove his knee up into the alien's stomach. The Drokan made a horrible wheezing sound and fell to his knees. Danny hit him once more in the side of the head. The Drokan collapsed and did not get up. The third Drokan tried to run. Danny caught him before he reached the end of the corridor. He grabbed the alien by the back of his neck and slammed him face first into the wall. The Drokan slid down and lay still. The whole fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Danny stood in the middle of the corridor. He was breathing a little harder than normal, but not much. His hands hurt from the impacts, but he had felt worse before. Much worse. Gorath was on the floor, holding his broken arm and moaning. The other 2 were unconscious. Danny looked at them without pity. They had chosen this. They had chosen to hurt someone weaker than them for fun. Now they learned that someone stronger did not like that. Danny turned to Kip. The little Velny was still on the floor where he had fallen. His big dark eyes were wide with shock. He was staring at Danny like he was looking at a ghost, or maybe a god. "Are you okay?" Danny asked. Kip opened his mouth. No words came out. He tried again. You, you beat them, all three of them, by yourself. Yeah, but they are Drokans. They are strong. Everyone fears them. Danny shrugged. They are not that strong. Not really. They just never met anyone who pushed back. He walked over to Kip and helped him stand up. Kip's legs were shaky. Danny steadied him with a gentle hand. How? Kip whispered. How did you do that? Danny thought about how to explain it. Humans were not the biggest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the strongest, but they were different. Earth was a hard world. It had high gravity. It had dangerous animals. It had harsh weather. Humans had evolved to survive all of it. They had thick bones and dense muscles. They could take damage that would kill other species. They could keep fighting long after they should have stopped. But more than that, humans had something else. They had a fire inside them, a stubborn refusal to give up, a willingness to fight for things that mattered. Where I come from, Danny said, we learned a long time ago that bullies only understand one thing. You have to stand up to them. You have to show them that hurting others has a cost. Kip was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised Danny. I thought humans were weak. Everyone says humans are weak. Soft bodies, no claws, no armor, no venom. Danny smiled a little. Funny thing about humans. We do not need any of that. We have something better. What? Danny looked down at the groaning Drokans on the floor. Then he looked back at Kip. News traveled fast on Omega 7. By the end of that first day, everyone on the station had heard some version of the story. A human maintenance worker had fought 3 Drokan thugs in a corridor. He had broken one of their arms. He had knocked out the other 2. He had done it all to protect a Velny waste processor that no one else cared about. Some aliens did not believe it at first. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were soft and small compared to most galactic species. They had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. Most aliens still thought of them as primitives. Clever primitives, maybe, but primitives all the same. But the evidence was hard to ignore. Gorath was in the medical bay with his arm in a healing cast. His 2 friends were covered in bruises. They all refused to talk about what happened. That silence told everyone what they needed to know. The story was true. Danny tried to keep his head down after the fight. He did not want attention. He just wanted to do his job and make sure Kip was safe. But attention found him anyway. 2 days after the fight, Danny received a message on his personal communicator. The station administrator wanted to see him in her office, immediately. The administrator was a Kethrani named Supervisor Vex. The Kethrani were tall, insect-like beings with hard shells and multiple arms. They were known for being efficient and cold. They did not care much about feelings. They only cared about results. Danny walked into the administrator's office and stood in front of her desk. Vex looked at him with her compound eyes. Her mandibles clicked together in a way that might have been annoyance. You have caused problems, Vex said. Her voice was flat and mechanical. The Drokan Workers' Union is demanding compensation. They say you attacked their members without cause. They want you removed from the station. Danny kept his voice calm. Did they tell you why I attacked them? They say you are violent and unstable. They say you targeted them because of species prejudice. Danny almost laughed. That is not what happened. Those 3 have been beating a Velny worker every morning for months. Check the records for the sanitation corridor. Someone broke the cameras there on purpose. Pull the backup power logs. You will see they have been disabled for a long time. Ask around. Everyone in the sanitation department knows what was happening. They just did not care enough to stop it. Vex was quiet for a moment. Her eyes studied Danny like he was a puzzle she could not solve. The Velny are a minor species, she said finally. Their concerns are not a priority. Their concerns should be everyone's priority. They are living beings. They feel pain. They feel fear. Just because they cannot fight back does not mean they deserve to be hurt. That is a very human way of thinking. Maybe, but it is the right way of thinking. Vex clicked her mandibles again. She seemed to be considering something. I will investigate your claims, but I warn you, human, do not make this a habit. Omega-7 runs on order. We cannot have workers attacking each other whenever they feel like it. Danny nodded. I understand. But you need to understand something too. If your order means letting the weak get beaten every day while security looks the other way, then your order is broken, and I am not the one who broke it. He left the office without waiting to be dismissed. Over the next few weeks, something strange began to happen on Omega-7. It started small. A human cargo worker named Lisa Monroe saw a group of larger aliens pushing around a small species called the Fenny. She walked over and stood between them. She did not fight anyone. She just stood there and refused to move until the bullies got bored and left. A few days later, a human cook named Kevin Brooks refused to serve food to a customer who had been making fun of a Velny server. The customer was a wealthy merchant from a powerful species. Kevin did not care. He told the merchant to apologize or leave the restaurant hungry. The merchant left hungry. More incidents followed. A human engineer started walking Velny workers to their shifts so they would not be alone in the corridors. A human doctor began treating species that other doctors ignored. A human teacher started offering free lessons to anyone who wanted to learn, no matter what species they were. None of this was planned. There was no organization behind it. The humans on Omega-7 did not have meetings or make strategies. They just saw what Danny had done and decided to do similar things. They saw someone standing up for the weak and thought maybe they should do the same. Danny did not think of himself as a leader. He was just a maintenance worker. But other humans started coming to him with questions. They wanted to know how to help. They wanted to know what to do when they saw injustice. Danny gave them the only advice he had. Do what feels right. Protect people who cannot protect themselves. Do not start fights, but do not run from them either. And always remember that we are stronger together than we are alone. Kip came to see Danny one evening after work. The little Velny looked different than before. He still walked carefully, but his head was not down anymore. His big dark eyes had something new in them, something that looked like hope. The other Velny are talking about you, Kip said. They call you the Defender. They say you are the first person who ever fought for us. Danny felt uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what anyone should do. But no one ever did. That is what makes it special. For thousands of years, the Velny have been at the bottom. We have been beaten and insulted and ignored. We accepted it because we had no choice. We thought that was just how the universe worked. It does not have to be that way. Kip nodded slowly. I am starting to understand that. You showed us something we never believed was possible. You showed us that someone could care. Someone could fight. Not for power or money, but just because it was right. Danny put his hand on Kip's thin shoulder. You are not nothing, Kip. Your people are not nothing. Do not ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Kip's eyes glistened with tears. Thank you, Danny. Thank you for seeing us. As the weeks passed, the changes on Omega-7 became harder to ignore. The Velny started walking with their heads held higher. Other weak species began to do the same. A few of them even started standing up for themselves in small ways. They reported abuse instead of hiding it. They complained about unfair treatment instead of accepting it. The bullies did not disappear overnight, but they became more careful. They knew that humans were watching. They knew that there might be consequences now. Some aliens resented the changes. They said humans were meddling in things they did not understand. They said the natural order was being disrupted. They said weak species were weak for a reason and should stay in their place. Other aliens were curious. They had never seen a species act like humans did. Most species in the galaxy followed a simple rule. The strong dominated the weak. That was how things had always been. That was how things were supposed to be. But humans did not follow that rule. They had something different inside them, something that made them protect strangers, something that made them angry when they saw cruelty, something that made them risk their own safety for creatures they had never met. No one knew what to call that something. Some said it was foolishness. Some said it was weaken. 3 months after the fight in the corridor, a ship arrived at Omega 7. It was not a cargo ship. It was not a transport vessel. It was a diplomatic cruiser bearing the seal of the Galactic Council. The Council was the most powerful governing body in known space. They made the laws that ruled over thousands of species across hundreds of worlds. Their decisions shaped the fate of entire civilizations. They did not send representatives to a small trade station for minor matters. When the delegation arrived, the whole station went quiet. Aliens stopped in the hallways to watch the visitors pass. Everyone knew something big was happening. They just did not know what. The delegation included representatives from 12 different species. They were diplomats, scholars, and military observers. They walked through the station with serious faces and made notes on their electronic tablets. They asked questions about the recent changes. They wanted to know about the humans. They wanted to know about Danny. At the head of the delegation was a being called High Arbiter Morath. He was ancient. He had served on the Galactic Council for over 200 years. His species was called the Aldrani. They lived for a very long time and were known for their wisdom. Morath stood 8 feet tall with silver-gray skin and eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. Morath requested a private meeting with Danny. They met in an observation lounge on the upper decks. Large windows looked out at the stars and the distant lights of cargo ships moving through space. It was a beautiful view. Danny had never been to this part of the station before. Maintenance workers were not usually welcome in the nice areas. Morath stood by the window with his hands folded behind his back. Danny entered the room and stopped a few feet away. He was not sure what to expect. "You are the one they call the Defender," Morath said. His voice was deep and slow like distant thunder. "I am just a maintenance worker. That is not what the Velni say. That is not what anyone on this station says." Morath turned to look at Danny. His ancient eyes were hard to read. "Your species is interesting. You have been part of galactic society for such a short time, less than 50 of your years. Yet everywhere you go, you create changes. You create problems." Danny was not sure how to respond. "We just try to do what is right." "And what is right? Who decides that?" "I do not think anyone decides it. I think most beings know it when they see it. Hurting someone who cannot fight back is wrong. Ignoring suffering because it is convenient is wrong. These things are not complicated." Morath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You speak with such certainty. The Velni have been treated this way for thousands of years, longer than your species has existed. Their weakness has defined their place in the galaxy. It is simply the natural order. The strong survive. The weak serve." Danny felt the anger rising in his chest but kept his voice steady. "Where I come from, we used to think that way too. We had slavery. We had empires built on cruelty. We treated people as less than human because of how they looked or where they came from. It took us a long time to learn that was wrong. Too long. Millions of people suffered because of it. And now you think you can teach the galaxy what you learned? I think the galaxy already knows. I think most species know that cruelty is wrong. They just choose to ignore it because it is easier, because standing up for others is hard, because changing things requires sacrifice." Morath studied Danny for a long moment. The silence stretched between them like a bridge over a deep canyon. "Your species is dangerous," Morath said finally. Danny frowned. "Dangerous? We are not trying to hurt anyone." "That is not the kind of danger I mean. You are not dangerous because of your weapons or your strength. You are dangerous because of your ideas. You make others believe things that they never believed before. You make them question the way things have always been. Is that bad? Morath turned back to the window. He looked out at the stars for a while before answering. I do not know. The galaxy has been stable for a very long time. The strong rule, the weak submit. It is not fair, but it is predictable. Everyone knows their place. Your species threatens that stability. You tell the weak that they do not have to accept their fate. You tell them they deserve better. You fight for them when no one else will. Someone has to. Why? Why does someone have to? The Velni have accepted their place for thousands of years. They were surviving, perhaps not happily, but they were surviving. Danny walked closer to the window. He stood next to Morath and looked out at the same stars. My grandmother used to tell me a story. Back on Earth, hundreds of years ago, there was a group of people who were kept as slaves. They were beaten and worked to death. Their children were taken from them. Everyone said that was just the way things were. The slaves even started to believe it themselves. He paused, remembering. But some people refused to accept it. They fought back. They helped slaves escape. They spoke out against the injustice even when it was dangerous. Many of them died for it. But eventually, things changed. The slaves were freed. It took a long time, but it happened because some people refused to believe that cruelty was natural. Morath was quiet. The Velni are not just surviving, Danny continued. They are suffering. Every day. And being told that their suffering does not matter. That is not the natural order. That is just cruelty that no one has bothered to stop. Morath turned to face Danny. His ancient eyes had changed somehow. There was something new in them. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was something else. The Council has debated what to do about humanity. Some believe you should be contained. Your influence limited before you disrupt the balance of power. Others are curious to see what will happen if you are allowed to continue. And what do you believe? Morath was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. I have lived for a very long time. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species destroy each other over resources and pride and fear. I have seen the galaxy remain mostly the same despite all of it. The strong dominate. The weak suffer. It is a pattern that seems impossible to break. He looked at Danny with those deep, ancient eyes. But I have never seen a species quite like yours. You are not the strongest. You are not the smartest. You are not the oldest. But you have something that other species lack. You feel the pain of strangers as if it were your own. You fight for beings you have never met. You believe that things can be better, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Morath smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face. I do not know yet. But I intend to find out. The Council will be watching humanity very closely in the years to come. You have caught our attention. He began walking toward the door. Then he stopped and looked back at Danny one more time. The Velni call you their defender? Other species are starting to use the same word for all humans. I wonder if you understand what that means. You have given hope to those who had none. That is a powerful thing. Perhaps the most powerful thing in the galaxy. And that makes us dangerous? Morath nodded slowly. Hope is always dangerous. It makes beings believe they can change their fate, and sometimes, against all odds, they actually do. He left the room without another word. 1 year had passed since Danny found Kip in Cargo Bay 12. 1 year since he stood up to the Drokans in that dark corridor. 1 year since everything changed. Omega-7 was not the same station anymore. The changes were visible everywhere, in the hallways where different species now walked together without fear. In the cafeterias where Velny sat at tables with aliens who would have ignored them before. In the security offices where complaints about abuse were now taken seriously. The transformation had not happened overnight. It had been slow and difficult. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when it seemed like nothing would ever really change. But somehow, it did. A Velny named Sarah had been promoted to shift supervisor in the sanitation department. She was the first of her kind to hold such a position on any major station in the galaxy. When the announcement was made, the other Velny workers cried. They had never imagined such a thing was possible. Anti-harassment protocols had been implemented across the entire station. Security officers who ignored complaints were removed from their posts. The broken cameras in the sanitation corridor had been fixed. The dark places where bullies once hunted were dark no more. Other stations started following the example of Omega 7. Human advocacy groups formed partnerships with Velny community leaders. News reports talked about the changes spreading through the sector. The phrase human intervention became common in galactic media. Sometimes it was spoken with fear, sometimes with hope, sometimes with both. Danny still worked maintenance on the lower decks. He had been offered promotions many times. Important people wanted to give him awards and medals. Earth's diplomatic corps had invited him to join their ranks. He turned everything down. He was not interested in being a symbol. He was not interested in giving speeches or attending ceremonies. He just wanted to do his job and make sure the people around him were safe. One morning, exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Kip found Danny in Cargo Bay 12, the same cargo bay where it all began. Danny was checking on a ventilation unit when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and saw Kip standing in the doorway. The little Velny looked different than he had a year ago. His posture was straighter. His eyes were brighter. He walked with the confidence of someone who knew they mattered. "I thought I might find you here," Kip said. Danny smiled and put down his tools. "Old habits. I like to check on this area, make sure everything is working." Kip walked into the cargo bay and looked around. "This is where you found me, hiding in the corner, covered in bruises, too scared to even look at you." "I remember. I was so afraid that day. I thought you were going to hurt me like everyone else did. When you helped me instead, I did not understand. I could not understand why anyone would do that." "And now?" Kip's large, dark eyes glistened. "Now I understand. You showed me that kindness is not weakness. Caring about others is not something to be ashamed of. Standing up for what is right is not foolish. These things are what make a person strong, real strong, not just big muscles and sharp claws strong." Danny felt warmth spread through his chest. "You learned all that yourself, Kip. I just gave you a chance to see it. No, you did more than that. You made all of us believe that things could change. For thousands of years, the Velny accepted our place at the bottom. We told ourselves it was just how the universe worked. You showed us that the universe does not work any particular way. It works the way we make it work." They stood in silence for a moment. Ships drifted past the cargo bay windows. Stars glittered in the distance. "The other Velny have been talking," Kip said. "They wonder about humans. They ask questions I do not know how to answer." "What kind of questions?" "They want to know why. Why do humans care so much? Why do you feel the pain of strangers? Why do you fight for beings you have never met? It does not make sense to them. In the galaxy, most species only care about themselves. They protect their own kind and ignore everyone else. But humans are different. You protect everyone." Danny thought about the question. It was something he had wondered about himself. Why did humans care so much about beings they had no connection to? What made them different from other species? "I think it is because of where we come from," he said slowly. "Earth is a hard world. Life there has always been dangerous. Humans survived because we learned to work together. We formed groups and tribes and nations. We took care of each other. We learned that the survival of one person depends on the survival of everyone around them. He paused, trying to find the right words. But it is more than just survival. Somewhere along the way, we started to feel things. We started to feel pain when we saw others suffer. We started to feel angry when we saw injustice. We started to feel responsible for fixing things that were broken, even things that had nothing to do with us. That sounds exhausting, Kip said. Danny laughed softly. It is. It really is. Sometimes I wish I could just ignore things, walk past the suffering and not feel anything, but I cannot. None of us can. It is built into us. We see someone in pain, and something inside us demands that we help. The galaxy does not understand that. I know. Most species think we are crazy. They think we are wasting our energy on things that do not matter. But here is the thing, Kip. Those things do matter. Every person matters. Every act of kindness matters. Every time someone stands up for someone else, it creates ripples. Those ripples spread outward. They touch other people. They inspire other acts of kindness. Eventually, they can change everything. Kip nodded slowly. I see those ripples now. I see them all over the station, all over the sector. The Velni are not the only ones who have changed. Other species are starting to change too. They are starting to believe that maybe things do not have to stay the same forever. That is how it starts. One person at a time. One act of courage at a time. They walked out of the cargo bay together. The corridor outside was busy with workers heading to their shifts. Danny noticed something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. A group of Drokons walked past a Velni worker. They did not push him. They did not insult him. They just walked past like he was any other person. It was a small thing, but small things added up. What happens now? Kip asked. What comes next for humanity? Danny looked out at the crowded corridor. He saw humans and aliens walking together. He saw species that used to ignore each other now talking and working side by side. He saw a station that had been changed by simple acts of courage and compassion. I do not know what comes next, he admitted. The galaxy is a big place. There are billions of beings out there who still suffer. There are still bullies and tyrants and people who think cruelty is normal. We cannot fix everything. We cannot save everyone. Then why keep trying? Danny smiled. Because every person we help matters. Every life we touch matters. We do not have to fix everything. We just have to do what we can. Light one candle instead of cursing the darkness. And maybe, if enough of us light enough candles, eventually the whole galaxy will see. Kip stood a little straighter. His dark eyes reflected the lights of the corridor. I want to help, he said. I want to be like you. I want to stand up for others the way you stood up for me. Danny put his hand on Kip's shoulder. You already are, Kip. Every day that you hold your head up, you inspire others to do the same. Every time you refuse to accept cruelty as normal, you make the galaxy a little bit better. You do not need to fight with your fists. You just need to fight with your heart. They stood together for a moment longer. Then Kip had to go to his shift, and Danny had to go to his. They said goodbye and walked in opposite directions. But before Kip disappeared around a corner, he turned back one more time. Thank you, Danny. Thank you for everything. Danny waved. Take care of yourself, Kip, and take care of each other. He watched Kip walk away. The little Velni who had once been nothing was now something. Something important. Something that mattered. And somewhere across the galaxy, in stations and cities and villages on 1,000 different worlds, other beings were waking up to new mornings. Mornings where they did not have to be afraid. Mornings where they believed things could be better. Mornings full of hope. Humanity had given them that hope. Not with weapons or threats or power, just with simple acts of kindness, just by caring when no one else would. Danny went back to work. He fixed pipes and repaired systems and kept the station running. He was still just a maintenance worker, but he was also something more. He was proof that one person could make a difference. And that was the most human thing of all. Danny stood alone by the window for a long time. He looked out at the stars and thought about what Morath had said. Humanity had gotten the attention of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They were being watched. They were being judged. But Danny did not feel afraid. He felt something else entirely. He felt proud of what humans were becoming, proud of the changes they were making, proud of the hope they were giving to species that had never had any. If that made humanity dangerous, then maybe the galaxy needed a little danger. Maybe it was time for things to change. SS dressed up as strength, but the Velny had a different word for it. They called it hope, and for the first time in a very long time, they were starting to believe in it. The ripples from Danny's fight in the corridor were spreading outward. They were reaching other stations, other worlds, other species. A small act of courage was becoming something much bigger, and somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of the Galactic Council, important beings were starting to take notice. Humanity had gotten their attention. Now, the question was what they would do about it. We have each other, and we do not leave people behind. He walked Kip to the medical bay again. Then he went to his shift. He fixed the things that needed fixing. He acted like it was a normal day, but it was not a normal day. Everything had changed. Word was already spreading through the station. A human had beaten 3 Drokans with his bare hands. A human had protected a Velny. The weakest species had found a defender. Danny did not know it yet, but he had started something much bigger than a corridor fight. He had started a revolution. D and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Kip getting beaten every morning. He thought about no one caring. He thought about the security chief telling a victim to hide better. Danny made a decision. He was not going to let this continue. He did not know exactly what he was going to do yet. But he knew he was going to do something, because some things were just wrong. And when you saw something wrong and did nothing, you became part of the problem. Danny closed his eyes. Tomorrow morning he was going to wake up early, earlier than usual. And he was going to be waiting in that corridor near the sanitation wing. The Drokans liked to have fun in the morning. Danny was going to show them a different kind of morning.